Good morning to you all. Today we are going to see something about resource visualization in cloud computing. Okay. So before I start, there is a topic which is related there, resource visualization in cloud computing. What is virtual machine? Before I move on, the layer of indirect between abstract view and implementation, or I can say it hides the details of implementation. It hides the detail of implementation. Virtual machine is nothing but which hides the detail of implementation. Virtual machine is a computer file typically called as image which behave like a computer. It creates own environment. It runs own window which much like a program giving an end user the same experience as virtual machine as they would have hosting a operating system. So virtual machine is something which says that it's just like a computer, but it hides your implementation part, which has got its own memory, which has got its own operating system, which has got its own uh, hardware and everything. You tend to behave like that. It's just like your own operating system, but it hides what are the details behind that. Creating a virtual machine or existing operating system or hardware is known as hardware visualization. And virtual machine provides an environment that logically separate underline your hardware. Once again, I tell you, it hides the implementation process, or it hides the what are the hardwares and everything related to it. The machine in which the virtual machine is going to create is known as a host machine. The machine on which the virtual machine is created is known as a host machine, and the virtual machine is referred as a guest machine. So remember things. The major concept of virtual machine is something which I say is that it just like an which give you an environment, or you think like that it's you're using your own system which hides your what you call hardware part. We can able to see that it has its own hardware, it has its own memory and other things which are related to it. uh, the next slides which give you the idea of virtual machine. Multiple virtual machine can run simultaneously on the physical computer. Yes, there are multiple virtual machine can be able to run it. This is one virtual machine, this is one virtual machine, this is one virtual machine, and this is your hyperversion, which I'm going to discuss in my next slides, and which has different software, that is UML, uh, Zen, UML, Daniel, other things. Including each virtual machine provides its own, as I discussed in my previous slides, virtual hardware, CPU, memory, hard disk, network interface, and other devices. So each virtual machine have this part. Have this part. The virtual hardware in that mapped the real hardware or physical hardware, which save cost by reducing the need of physical hardware system, along with association maintenance cost that goes up, plus reducing the power cooling of it. Now each virtual machine is the meaning of this sentence is that each virtual machine has its own operating system. And if you see this one is if you see this one is if you see this is Linux, this is ODBC, and this is Windows. So each virtual machine is totally different, which has got own CPU, memory, hard disk, and network interface. So what happened on a simple on a one virtual machine? I can host different different virtual machine, which can able to along with which can able to reduce my cost, and also which can able to reduce my cost as well as reduce my cooling process. And with the help of a hyperversion, I can able to do all this one. This is my hardware. Remember, as I discussed in my previous slide, it hides the hardware part from your computer. So the hardware part is hide, your hyperversion is there, and different version of virtual machine, virtual part simultaneously different virtual machines are running. So the major part is that virtual machine which hides the hardware from you, and you able to act like, you able to think that you're working on a real computer, which you can able to do it. This is part of a virtual machine. Now hyperversion, sometimes called a virtual machine manager, uh, sometimes called a virtual machine manager. The hyperversion is a software that exists to run, create, manage the virtual machine. To run, create, and manage the virtual machine. If you see this one, this is the hyperversion, which call it as a virtual manager. Let me go to this one. Virtual manager. Virtual manager. The hyperversion is what makes virtual possible to create virtual environment. This is what hyperversion is able to do it. It can able to make the environment, to create a virtual environment for the guest machine. What I tell you about guest machine, let's go to about this one. What do you mean by guest machine? The virtual machine is referred as a guest machine. So is known as a guest machine for your virtual machine. The hyperversion virtual machine only one that exists. Even there are numerous virtual machine running on the same physical hardware. Yes, there are number of virtual machines will be running, but there will be only one hyperversion. It's just like you can call it as a um, hyperversion, nothing but you can call it as a virtual machine manager, which can able to allocate your CPU, which can able to allot your hardware, which can able to allocate all the resources to particular guest machine. And each virtual machine can have n number of what do you call softwares which are running it. So as I can say you, this is one Linux which have got one application. This is other application. This is Windows which have got two versions of it. Now there are different virtual machines which we discuss. Hardware virtualization. When a virtual machine or software or a virtual machine VM is directly installed on a hardware is known as a hardware virtualization. When a virtual machine software is directly installed on the hardware, we call it as a hardware virtualization. The main job of hyperversion is to control the monitor the process. Why we are installing on a hardware? In order to control the process, in order to control the processor, in order to control the processor, in order to control the memory and other hardware resources. After visualization of hardware system, we can install different operating system. Remember, we can able to install different operating system. So on a particular hardware, I can able to have a Windows as well as I can able to have a Linux. Uses hardware utilization mainly done for server platform. Yes, server platform, because controlling virtual machine is easier than controlling a physical layer. Yes, you can able to control the hardware or other part with the help of a virtual machine. Physical layer, it's very difficult. So hardware visualization is directly installed on a hardware, and moreover, it is used for installing different operating system. Now this thing operating, next part is operating super operating system with virtualization. When the virtual machine, when the virtual machine software or is installed on the host operating system instead of directly on the hardware is known as operating system virtualization. Means we are not installing on a hardware, we are installing on a software. Operating system mainly used to test the different operating system. When we install an operating system, we use that operating system resources and we can able to test that software. For an example, if I want to, on my operating system, I want to test Linux, I cannot directly do it. What I do is that I directly install a virtual machine on my Windows operating system. Then I download a Linux and I can able to download, I can able to test that Linux or I can use that Linux. At the end, I just want to delete that virtual machine. My operating system Windows is working normally, and my what I say Linux is totally different. So you are going to install your virtualization machine on your operating system. First one is that you are going to install the virtual machine on your hardware. The next one is that you are going to install it on a operating system. Next, go to this one. Server visualization. When a virtual machine is directly installed on a server is known as server virtualization. Now we have seen operating system, we have seen on hardware. Now we are going on a server. Server use, why it is done? It single physical layer can be divided into multiple layer. A server can be divided. A server can be divided into different server part with the help of server virtualization. So before we have seen is hardware. Next we have an operating system. Now we are taking server virtualization. Usage is that you are dividing the server basic command, basic need into different load balancing for different users. Storage, next comes the storage virtualization. The process of grouping physical storage for multiple network storage device so that look like a single storage device. For the difference is that here what we are going to do is that your server is there, we are dividing into different part and giving to something for load balancing. Whereas here different storage, one, two, three, four, combined together a physical one storage. Or let's take an example. I have what is your hard disk capacity? If somebody says that you have 500 GB hard disk, but if you go inside, it's 200 GB, it is 300, it is 100 GB, and it is 200 GB. We divide it. Combined together, we get a physical 500 GB, but interior you have divided and you have stored that data. The same way is here is the storage virtualization. What do you mean by storage virtualization? The process of grouping a physical storage of multiple network storage device so that it look like a single storage device. Store virtualization is also implemented by software application. We are going to see that part of it. Storage virtualization mainly done for backup and recovery. We can able to do this one is for the help of backup or other. Well, let's take an example. We are going to store it for the help of this one. The next one is the network virtualization. In this process, combining available resource of a network by splitting the bandwidth of different channel, and then either assigned to a particular server or that is used for unused purposes. What I am doing is that available resources are they're splitting that available bandwidth into a different channel. One bandwidth is available with me. I'm going to split that one. They can be either assigned to a particular server. This one is going to particular server, or one is left out without using them. The idea is that technology is that we are going to see the complexity of a network by separating them. What will happen if I separate this network, and what how can I able to use that one, and what is the bandwidth, what is the capacity, what is the speed I'm going to see it. I'm going to test that. Let's take example. If I've got 100 GB or speed, what do you call, if I got a speed of that 100 GB speed or something like that downloading, I split, I divide that part into 10, 10, 10, 10, and I can see I can give an example. If I have got a 40 Mbps, sorry, 100 GB, I told you 100 Mbps speed, I can divide that into 5 part. That is example. I have given 20 Mbps to CSC department. I have given 20 Mbps to IT department, and then the 20 Mbps to civil department, 20 Mbps to mechanical department, 20 Mbps to EC, electrical department. What I mean to say, sometimes EC doesn't use, electrical department don't use it. That doesn't mean. What will happen is that particular server separated, they can either be assigned particular server or device or stay unassigned. It depends. Let's take an example. I have got 100 Mbps. I divide it into 5 part or 5 part. I use that for CSC, IT, mechanical. That's it. I leave it. I'll use for some other purpose. I divide that network virtualization. The next one is data virtualization. It is used abstract the technical detail usually used for business need. Your location, depending upon the location, performance, format, and everything, it is used for business model. Data, you are virtualizing the data for based on your location, performance, and everything. This is used for business model. Next one is that we have got desktop visualization. An example for this, I can just write is AnyDesk. And enable to use the enumerate a workstation load rather than server. Allow the user to access the desktop remotely. Allow the user to use that remotely. Since the workstation is essential, running a data center server access to it can either be secure or portable. Secure. What do you mean by secure? You get a user ID, you give it to someone, he can able to use that based on the what do you call any desk software, then he can able to use that. This is something like that can allow the access to the user remotely. Desktop virtualization, application virtualization. Software virtualization is cloud computing abstract application layer. That's what it is. Separated from different operating system. The way the application run on an encapsulation without knowing what are the depending upon the operating system and everything. In addition to providing the additional level, the application creates its own operating system can run completely different. Can run completely different. So if you see this part, so we have seen what is desktop virtualization. We have seen application virtualization. We have seen server virtualization. We have seen storage virtualization. We have seen network virtualization. This is virtualization which help run on hyperversion is the virtual manager which can able to run different things. This is the part of virtual machine. Remember, this is a very important question part of it. What is virtualization? How can you able to help explain the virtualization process? The different type of virtual machine we have. Then we have got resource pooling. Resource pooling is one of the major, what do you call, important tasks of cloud computing. The resource manager terms that refer to a grouping of resources for maximum advantages. We are using that grouping of resources which can be used for maximum advantages and minimum risk. We are going to use the resources which are available in a computer for different resources for maximum advantage and minimum risk. The main computing resources are pooled to meet the demand. Consumer resources, physical or virtually, can be dynamically assigned, can dynamically deallocate as per the requirement. Generally, the consumer are not aware of the exact location and computing. So the major part of resource pooling is that we are going to allocate resources which can be used for you at one part, and then we can allocate it for the other reason at the end of that one. And generally the user is doesn't know where that location is and everything. However, some part or some user may want to use that uh, resources only for a particular region or particular country or particular region. For example, a computer, a host service want to requires a data center which might be in the boundary of Australia. So he is using that. A particular cloud center or a particular user want to use the resources or pooling process which are available in Hyderabad. He or she doesn't want to go beyond that one. But some doesn't want to see, like if I'm using on a cloud computing process, I might be using my data center which are available in USA. So we are going to see that in one or few classes, the example for it. Resource pooling, how can IT resource can be organized, support for dynamic sharing. The most important part is that how can you allocate that with the help of a dynamic sharing. When resource when sharing resources, scalable process is there. Error must not be there. Scalable means if at any given time I have using about 8 GB RAM, at one time I need 16 GB RAM. So I can able to scale up that process. I can then at one time I don't need. So I can deallocate that resources. Then it should not caught me, it should not say that there is an error in that one. Automated synchronization process should be there. Yes, it should be there. Application resource pooling can be created different size for different organization. Yes, the major task for resource pooling is that how can you allocate maximum resources with minimum resource, and how can you deallocate it, where are the location available, and how you are going to do it, how the automatic process started, and what are the application for it. These are the resource pooling things which I have discussed in my slide. This one. Then next move on to this one. Let's example. This is an example which I have given it. There is a one resource pooling: CPU pool, memory pool, storage pool, and network. For an example, this is my a resource pooling. At one resource pooling, I need virtual server pool, yes, and CPU pool and memory pool. This is one. Then other one wanted is CPU pool, memory pool, and network. So one is using this one. This one is using this one. Uh, one, two, three. Other one is using one, two, three. So how can I allocate it at one given time, and how can I deallocate this at the other time? So this is what the part of it. Now let's move on to other part. This is capacity planning. I'll just give you the definition of capacity planning. Critical success factor depending upon the capacity server. How can you? do the capacity planning. Capacity planning is based on your X work, whatever the work you have done previously based on work, I can able to tell you what is the expected growth in the business, what are the requirement in that one, how you are going to plan it, what are the financial plan it, how can I able to use the resources at a given time. An example for this one, let's take example of your big bazaar or a big bazaar or something like that. On a particular day, a Saturday, Sunday, the sale will be very high. So the load on the server will be very high on that one. On a Monday, there will be less, or Tuesday, there will be less resources. So at on particular Saturday, Sunday, my resource capacity should be given at a scale high. And then on Tuesday, I must deallocate that services. And I need to pay whatever the amount, whatever the resources I use on Saturday and Sunday, that amount, I don't want to pay that amount on Tuesday because I'm not using that service. This can be done with the help of a capacity planning. We are going to see in our next class. Thank you very much.